The journey begins. The most powerful transformation does not arise from external change, but from altering the very foundation that shapes reality. Every belief, every perception, and every action stems from an underlying structure woven into consciousness itself. When this foundation shifts, the world shifts with it. Transformation is not a mere act of self-improvement, but a sacred invitation, an ancient call to reclaim the wisdom buried beneath layers of conditioning. It is a return to the source, where mastery over life does not come from force or control, but from understanding the forces that govern existence. This is the path walked by seekers, mystics, and alchemists throughout time. Those who knew that true power lies not in accumulating knowledge, but in becoming the embodiment of wisdom itself. Alchemy, often misunderstood as the pursuit of turning base metals into gold, is the science of inner transmutation. It is the art of refining the self, dissolving illusions, and forging a state of being that aligns with the highest truth. The ancients did not seek to merely change matter. They sought to refine the soul. To master alchemy is to master the self, to unlock the unseen forces shaping experience, and to wield them with precision and purpose. The path ahead unfolds through 7 portals, each representing a distinct phase of transformation. These are not mere steps but initiations, thresholds that demand surrender, courage, and an unshakable willingness to confront the unknown. Each portal refines awareness, dissolves limitations, and expands consciousness, forging an unbreakable foundation for mastery. This journey is both universal and profoundly personal. The principles that guide transformation apply to all, yet the way they manifest is unique to each traveler. No two paths will look the same, yet all lead to the same revelation, the realization of the self as the architect of reality. The first portal calls forth awakening, the moment when the illusion fractures and the deeper truth begins to emerge. From there, the shadow rises, revealing the hidden aspects of self that must be embraced rather than denied. The great balance follows, demanding the mastery of opposing forces to cultivate harmony. The power of the word is then unveiled, demonstrating the creative force embedded in language and thought. Silence, often overlooked, becomes the gateway to the deepest wisdom, while the inner master emerges, reclaiming authority from external sources. Finally, the Philosopher's Stone, the culmination of all alchemical processes, illuminates the highest truth. Transformation was never about acquiring something new, but about recognizing what has always been. This is not a passive journey, nor is it one that can be undertaken half-heartedly. Each step requires full presence, full engagement, and the willingness to dissolve old identities in order to step into something greater. It is a path of fire and refinement, of shedding the unnecessary until only the essential remains. Mastery is not an end but a way of being, and this journey does not conclude with the final portal. It is an ever-expanding spiral, a continuous unfolding into deeper states of awareness and creation. To walk this path is to embrace transformation not as a single event but as the foundation of existence itself. Portal 1. The Awakening. The call to transformation. The most dangerous prison is the one where the bars remain unseen. A reality shaped by invisible forces, unquestioned beliefs, and inherited limitations creates an illusion of freedom while quietly dictating every thought, choice, and action. The walls of this unseen prison are not built of concrete but of conditioned perceptions, societal narratives, and deeply ingrained assumptions about what is possible. Awakening begins the moment these walls start to crack. It is not a gentle process, nor is it comfortable. It is a rupture in the familiar, a sudden recognition that the world may not be what it once seemed. The structures that once felt solid begin to shift, revealing gaps in the carefully constructed reality. The questions arise, questions that cannot be ignored, that challenge the very core of identity, purpose, and existence itself. Everything perceived in the external world acts as a mirror reflecting the internal state. The circumstances of life, the people encountered, the challenges faced, All of these are manifestations of underlying beliefs, unresolved emotions, and patterns deeply embedded within the psyche. To awaken is to recognize this mirror for what it is, to cease reacting to life as if it were happening independently and instead begin deciphering the messages it is constantly revealing. The illusion of separation is the first veil that must be pierced. The modern world conditions individuals to see themselves as isolated entities, disconnected from one another, from nature, and from the greater forces at play. This illusion breeds fear, competition, and a sense of lack. It reinforces the belief that fulfillment must be pursued externally, that something is missing, and that the self is incomplete. Yet beneath this illusion lies an undeniable truth. Everything is interconnected. The lines drawn between self and other, between the individual and the universe, are constructs of the conditioned mind. To awaken is to dissolve these boundaries. It is to recognize that what appears as division is merely perspective, that the same consciousness animates all existence. This realization is not an abstract philosophical concept but a lived experience, one that shatters old paradigms and reconfigures the very foundation upon which reality is built. Society reinforces unconsciousness, not out of malice, but because it operates on the momentum of the past. From birth, individuals are shaped by systems designed to maintain the status quo. Education, culture, media, traditions, all subtly instill a particular way of thinking, a predefined map of reality that dictates what is true, what is valuable, and what is possible. To question these structures is often met with resistance, not only from external forces but from within, as the conditioned mind clings to familiarity. Breaking free requires the courage to question everything. Every belief must be examined. Every assumption must be brought to light. What has been accepted as truth must be scrutinized to determine whether it was chosen consciously or simply inherited. This is the fire of initiation, the discomfort that inevitably arises when the foundations of identity begin to shake. Growth is not possible without discomfort. Transformation demands a shedding of the old, a process that is neither easy nor painless. The false self, the identity constructed from conditioned beliefs and societal expectations, fears its own dissolution. It resists, clings, and fights to maintain its existence. This resistance manifests as doubt, confusion, fear, and even external obstacles that seem to appear just as the path to awakening begins to unfold. Yet discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is the evidence of expansion. The fire that burns away illusions also refines what is real. Without the trials that challenge perception, growth remains stagnant. The willingness to sit with discomfort, to move through it rather than retreat from it, determines the depth of transformation. Awakening is not a singular event but an ongoing process. It does not happen all at once, nor does it follow a linear path. It unfolds in layers, each revelation leading to deeper questions, each breakthrough revealing another veil to be lifted. The initial awakening may feel like an earthquake, shaking the very core of reality, but true mastery comes in sustaining this awareness beyond the moment of realization. Practices for cultivating awareness and presence become essential tools in this process. Meditation, conscious breathing, and mindfulness serve as anchors, grounding awareness in the present moment rather than allowing it to be swept away by old patterns. Observation without judgment becomes a practice in itself, watching thoughts, emotions, and reactions without becoming entangled in them. This awareness creates space, a gap between experience and reaction, where conscious choice begins to emerge. The signs of awakening vary, yet common patterns emerge. A sudden disillusionment with the conventional world, a deep yearning for truth, synchronicities that defy logical explanation, an increased sensitivity to energy and intuition. These are signals that the process has begun. The old ways no longer fit, and the soul begins seeking something beyond the surface of existence. As the first portal, awakening is both an ending and a beginning. It marks the dissolution of illusion and the emergence of a new way of seeing, one that will shape the path ahead. Yet awakening alone is not enough. The journey demands more than awareness. It requires transformation. The next portal reveals what must be confronted next, the hidden aspects of the self, the shadows that hold the keys to power. The journey continues, deeper into the unknown, where the greatest challenges conceal the most profound revelations. Portal 2. The shadow, embracing the hidden self. The parts of the self that have been rejected, buried, or denied hold immense power. These fragments of identity, cast into the darkness of the unconscious, do not disappear. They linger beneath the surface, influencing thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in ways that remain unseen. The more they are suppressed, the more control they exert, shaping reality from the shadows. To step into true power, the hidden self must be embraced. The journey of transformation cannot proceed without this confrontation, for what remains unacknowledged continues to dictate the course of life. The concept of the shadow, explored deeply by Carl Jung and rooted in alchemical traditions, refers to the aspects of the self that have been deemed unacceptable, shameful, or dangerous. These are the traits that were rejected in childhood, the emotions that were suppressed, the desires that were deemed inappropriate. The shadow is composed of all that was pushed away in the quest to fit into societal norms and personal ideals. Yet, paradoxically, the shadow also contains hidden gifts. What was once repressed due to fear or conditioning often holds the key to strength, creativity, and authenticity. The parts of the self that were cast away are the very aspects that, when reintegrated, unlock true power. Facing the shadow requires absolute honesty. It is a process of looking into the depths of the psyche without turning away, of confronting the parts of the self that provoke discomfort. This confrontation is not an intellectual exercise, but an experience that stirs emotion, resistance, and even fear. The conditioned mind seeks to avoid this encounter at all costs, diverting attention outward, projecting unresolved conflicts onto the world rather than acknowledging their internal origins. Projection is the mechanism by which the shadow reveals itself indirectly. The aspects of the self that remain unrecognized are often seen in others. The qualities most disliked in another person frequently point to disowned traits within. This is the mirror effect of the shadow, the external world acting as a reflection of the unresolved inner world. Enemies, conflicts, and judgments provide clues to what remains buried. The more intense the emotional reaction, the more personal the shadow aspect being reflected. This is why certain people trigger deep anger, resentment, or discomfort. Their presence activates something unhealed, something waiting to be acknowledged. But the shadow is not only composed of what is feared or despised. There is also the golden shadow, the suppressed brilliance, the hidden talents, the extraordinary capabilities that were cast aside due to conditioning. Just as fear is projected outward, so is admiration. Those who are placed on pedestals, the individuals who evoke awe or envy, often embody qualities that exist within but have not yet been claimed. To embrace the shadow is to reclaim these lost aspects. It is to take back what was projected onto others and recognize it as one's own. The process of integration requires deep self-examination, a willingness to trace reactions back to their source, and the courage to embrace both the darkness and the light. Techniques for shadow integration involve direct engagement with these hidden parts. Journaling, active imagination, and guided introspection serve as pathways into the unconscious. Dreams, often rich with symbolic content, provide insight into what remains unresolved. Engaging in practices that challenge personal comfort zones, such as expressing suppressed emotions, embodying rejected traits, or exploring creative outlets, begins to reintegrate what was once denied. The relationship between shadow work and authentic power is undeniable. Those who have not faced their shadows remain controlled by them. They act from unconscious wounds, react to unseen triggers, and repeat patterns without understanding their origins. True power comes from knowing the self in its entirety, from standing in full awareness without fear of what lies beneath the surface. Case studies of transformation through shadow work reveal the profound impact of this process. Individuals who have embraced their shadow report an increase in inner peace, clarity, and a sense of wholeness. They no longer feel fragmented or at war with themselves. Relationships shift, as projections dissolve and interactions become rooted in truth rather than unconscious patterns. Creativity flourishes, as long-dormant aspects of the self find expression. The journey through this portal is not easy. It demands facing what has been avoided for a lifetime. It requires the willingness to see the self without illusion, to embrace every aspect without judgment. Yet the rewards are immeasurable. To integrate the shadow is to become whole. It is to reclaim the full spectrum of being, to step beyond limitation and into the vast expanse of true potential. This portal is a rite of passage. It is the threshold between unconscious existence and awakened presence. Once the shadow is embraced, the next stage of transformation begins, the mastery of polarity, the dance of opposites that must be understood and balanced. The path continues, deeper into the mysteries that lead to ultimate illumination. Portal 3. The Great Balance, Mastering Polarity. The forces that shape existence are not singular but dual in nature. Light and shadow, expansion and contraction, creation and destruction. Every movement of the universe unfolds as a dance between opposites. These forces do not compete. They complement. They are not enemies. They are partners in the great unfolding of life. Yet the conditioned mind perceives duality as conflict. It seeks to divide the world into categories of right and wrong, good and bad, desirable and undesirable. It clings to one side while rejecting the other, believing that peace comes from eliminating contrast rather than understanding it. This division creates resistance, suffering, and internal discord. Mastering polarity is the process of dissolving this illusion. It is the realization that opposites are not opposing but interwoven, that every force contains its counterpart, and that true power lies not in choosing between them but in integrating them. The Hermetic principle of polarity, one of the foundational laws of alchemy and esoteric wisdom, states that everything exists on a spectrum. Hot and cold are not separate entities but degrees of the same energy. Love and hate, confidence and insecurity, joy and sorrow, these are not contradictions but variations of a single essence. To grasp this truth is to step beyond the limiting framework of either or thinking. The mind conditioned by duality perceives life as a series of choices: success or failure, logic or intuition, control or surrender. But reality does not function in rigid absolutes. The key is not in choosing one extreme but in learning to hold both simultaneously. Nature itself reflects this dance of opposites. Day transitions into night, only to return again. The tide rises and falls in an endless rhythm. The seasons cycle between warmth and cold, each phase necessary for the next. Nothing is static and nothing exists in isolation. Life thrives in balance, not in extremes. The same principle applies within the self. The mind and heart, the body and spirit, the masculine and feminine energies within each being. These are not divisions but dynamic forces meant to be harmonized. When one is overemphasized at the expense of the other, imbalance occurs. Too much logic without intuition leads to rigidity. Too much action without receptivity leads to burnout. Too much giving without receiving leads to depletion. Masculine and feminine energies are among the most powerful expressions of polarity. These energies exist in all beings, regardless of gender, and serve as the fundamental creative forces of life. The masculine is active, structured, focused. It builds, protects, and moves forward with purpose. The feminine is fluid, receptive, intuitive. It nurtures, adapts, and weaves connection. When these forces are out of harmony, struggle arises. An excess of masculine energy without the balance of the feminine leads to aggression, control, and disconnection from emotion. An excess of feminine energy without the structure of the masculine leads to passivity, indecision, and lack of direction. But when they are integrated, they give rise to mastery. Action becomes purposeful yet adaptable. Logic and intuition work together. Strength and vulnerability coexist. The mastery of polarity requires moving beyond rigid categories into a state of fluid awareness. It demands the dissolution of false oppositions, the recognition that every aspect of existence contains its counterpart, and the willingness to embrace both sides rather than suppress one. Transcending either or thinking requires a shift in perception. Instead of seeing things in terms of opposition, they must be seen as complementing aspects of a whole. Fear is not the absence of courage. It is the catalyst for it. Doubt is not the enemy of faith. It is the space in which faith is tested and strengthened. The past and the future are not separate from the present. They are woven into its unfolding. The middle path is not neutrality but integration. It is not passivity but the ability to hold both sides without being consumed by either. This path does not reject polarity, it masters it. It is the ability to stand between two extremes and draw from each as needed, to navigate life with the full spectrum of possibility rather than being confined to a single approach. Practical techniques for balancing opposing forces include conscious self-examination, breathwork, and energetic awareness. Identifying personal imbalances, where one aspect is overdeveloped while another is suppressed, is the first step. Engaging in practices that cultivate the neglected energy, whether through movement, meditation, creative expression, or deep reflection, restores equilibrium. The alchemical wedding, a central concept in esoteric traditions, represents the union of opposites within the self. It is the merging of the sun and the moon, the conscious and the unconscious, the active and the receptive. This inner marriage does not eliminate polarity but reconciles it, creating a state of wholeness that no longer seeks external validation or completion. When polarity is mastered, life ceases to feel like a battle between extremes. Challenges are no longer met with resistance but with adaptability. Success and failure are no longer seen as opposites but as necessary phases of growth. Emotions are no longer categorized as good or bad but are understood as essential aspects of human experience. This portal is the threshold between fragmentation and unity. It is the moment when the war between opposites dissolves, revealing that they were never separate to begin with. Once this balance is attained, the path forward becomes clear. The power of the word, the next portal, emerges as the key to conscious creation. The journey continues deeper into the mastery of reality itself. Portal 4. The word, the power of creation. Words are not merely sounds that pass through the air or symbols written on a page. They are forces of creation, shaping reality with every syllable spoken or unspoken. The power of language extends far beyond communication. It is the architect of perception, the sculptor of experience, and the foundation upon which entire worlds are built. The words used daily are not passive reflections of reality. They actively shape it. Thoughts become words become beliefs, beliefs become actions, and actions become destiny. To master the power of the word is to become the conscious creator of life itself. Ancient wisdom has long understood this truth. In mystical traditions, creation begins with sound. The universe itself is said to have been spoken into existence. The sacred utterances of old, mantras, prayers, invocations, were not mere expressions but vibrational tools for altering consciousness and directing energy. The names given to things did not just describe them. They defined their very essence. Modern science echoes this understanding. The field of neuroplasticity demonstrates how words and thoughts literally rewire the brain. Repeated patterns of speech and internal dialogue carve neural pathways, reinforcing certain ways of thinking and experiencing the world. A person who consistently speaks words of limitation conditions their brain to expect struggle. One who speaks words of possibility trains their mind to seek opportunity. This is why moving from unconscious reaction to conscious creation begins with the mastery of language. Most people speak without awareness, unaware of the impact their words have on their emotions, actions, and circumstances. They reinforce lack without realizing it, saying, "I can't, I'm stuck, nothing ever works for me," without recognizing that these statements are not just observations but commands to the subconscious mind. To awaken to the power of the word is to realize that every statement spoken is a spell cast upon reality. Language is an energy transmission, a vibration that organizes the field of possibilities into form. What is affirmed consistently becomes truth. What is declared with conviction sets events into motion. The first step in reclaiming the power of the word is awareness. Every word spoken or thought must be examined, not with judgment, but with curiosity. How often do limiting beliefs disguise themselves as casual statements? How many times are words used carelessly, reinforcing old stories rather than creating new ones? The second step is purification. Just as the body must be cleansed of toxins to function optimally, so too must language be purified of unconscious limitations. This is not about empty positivity or avoiding difficult truths, but about choosing words intentionally, ensuring they align with the reality one wishes to create. The shift from unconscious to conscious speech involves several key practices. Replacing limiting language with words that empower. Instead of, "I don't know what to do," saying, "I am open to clarity." Instead of, "I can't afford this," saying, "I am choosing how to direct my resources." Speaking in affirmations that align with the desired state. Not as mere wishful thinking, but as declarations that train the mind to perceive and act in alignment with those truths. Becoming mindful of self-talk. The inner dialogue is the most constant form of communication. Shifting internal narratives from doubt and fear to trust and capability rewires the entire experience of reality. Utilizing sacred speech, mantras, invocations, and intentional declarations carry vibrational potency. Words spoken with reverence and focus hold more power than those spoken casually. The most potent words are those spoken with belief. It is not the surface meaning alone that shapes reality but the energetic charge behind it. A statement filled with conviction carries an entirely different impact than one spoken out of habit or hesitation. Naming and claiming reality is the final stage of word mastery. Every great transformation begins with a decision, and every decision is solidified through language. The act of naming an intention, whether aloud, in writing, or within the depths of one's being, serves as a catalyst. It shifts energy, drawing the unseen into form. The vocabulary of the alchemist is one of empowerment, clarity, and creation. It does not dwell in limitation, but in possibility. It does not reinforce stagnation, but movement. It does not speak of what is lacking, but of what is being cultivated. Mastery of the word is mastery of reality. Those who wield language with intention shape their world with precision. They do not speak carelessly, nor do they allow external influences to dictate their internal dialogue. They recognize that every word spoken is a brushstroke on the canvas of existence. With this mastery comes responsibility. Words create, but they also destroy. Just as they can heal, they can wound. Just as they can elevate, they can diminish. Conscious use of language means wielding this power with awareness, ensuring that the words spoken contribute to the highest good. This portal is the transition from passive existence to active creation. It is the moment when reality ceases to be something that happens and becomes something that is shaped. Yet the journey does not end here. The next step requires moving beyond words into the profound silence where deeper wisdom resides. The path continues, leading toward the source from which all speech arises, the silence that speaks. Portal 5. The silence. The gateway to inner wisdom. There is a voice within that speaks without sound, a wisdom that does not come from books, teachers, or external knowledge. This voice does not shout. It does not argue or insist. It speaks in the spaces between thoughts, in the stillness between words. It is the knowing that arises when all distractions fall away. Yet, in a world filled with noise, silence has become rare. The modern mind is conditioned to seek constant input. Music, conversations, notifications, entertainment, endless streams of information. Silence is seen as emptiness, something to be filled rather than embraced. But this conditioning comes at a cost. The more external noise is consumed, the harder it becomes to hear the inner voice. The paradox of seeking wisdom is that it is not found in accumulating more knowledge but in creating the space for it to arise. True insight does not come from adding to the mind but from clearing away the clutter that obscures its natural clarity. This is the purpose of silence, not as an absence but as a presence. It is not the mere lack of sound but a state of deep receptivity, an openness to what lies beyond thought. In this space, the mind settles, the constant chatter fades, and something deeper emerges. The noise of modern life is not just external. It is internal. The mind, conditioned by distraction, generates an endless stream of thoughts, worries, plans, judgments, reactions. It clings to the past and projects into the future, rarely resting in the stillness of the present moment. This mental noise drowns out the subtle guidance that is always available, the inner wisdom that cannot be forced but can only be received. Ancient traditions understood the power of silence. Monastic practices across cultures emphasize solitude and quiet contemplation as essential for spiritual insight. Indigenous wisdom keepers spoke of the importance of listening to the natural world, of attuning to the messages hidden in the wind, the water, the fire. Mystics of every tradition withdrew from the noise of society to hear the truth that could only be found in stillness. But silence is not only for monks and mystics. It is not something that requires isolation or a life removed from the world. It is a state that can be cultivated within any life, a practice that can be integrated into the everyday. The stages of inner silence unfold gradually. At first, there is resistance. The mind, unaccustomed to stillness, rebels. Thoughts race, emotions surface, discomfort arises. This is the first barrier, the belief that silence should feel peaceful from the beginning. But silence is not about feeling a certain way. It is about allowing whatever arises to be seen without reaction. As the practice deepens, something shifts. The thoughts continue, but they are no longer so compelling. They pass like clouds in the sky, observed rather than engaged with. The emotions surface, but they no longer define reality. A deeper awareness emerges, one that is not bound by mental activity but exists beneath it. This is where the true power of silence begins to reveal itself. It is the space where answers arise without being sought, where clarity emerges without force. It is where the difference between the mind's chatter and the soul's knowing becomes clear. Distinguishing between inner knowing and mental noise is essential. The mind is conditioned to operate from fear, logic, and past conditioning. It tries to predict, analyze, control. The deeper knowing, however, does not argue. It does not come from fear but from truth. It is often quiet, subtle, a simple recognition rather than an explanation. This is why silence is essential. Without it, the deeper knowing is drowned out by the louder voice of the conditioned mind. Without space to receive, wisdom cannot be heard. The relationship between silence and creativity is profound. The greatest works of art, the most inspired ideas, the most transformative insights often emerge not from effort but from stillness. When the mind is emptied of noise, creativity flows naturally. Solutions appear. Inspiration arises. The energy that was once consumed by constant mental activity is freed for deeper expression. Practical techniques for cultivating deep listening include meditation, not as an attempt to force silence, but as a practice of becoming aware of what is already present beneath thought. Breath awareness, using the rhythm of the breath to anchor attention and create space within the mind. Solitude, spending intentional time away from external stimulation to allow internal awareness to emerge. Listening practices focusing deeply on sound, whether in nature, music, or everyday life, as a way to train the mind to be fully present. Wordlessness, setting aside periods where no words are spoken or written, allowing other forms of perception to take precedence. As silence deepens, so does the connection to intuition. The ability to trust one's inner guidance grows. The need for external validation lessens. Life is no longer dictated by reactive thought patterns, but by a deeper, more aligned knowing. This portal is the transition from seeking to receiving. It is the moment when wisdom is no longer something to be chased, but something that arises naturally from within. But to fully reclaim this inner authority, the next step must be taken, the recognition that the answers have always been within. The journey continues, leading to the mastery of self and the reclamation of true power. Portal 6. The Inner Master. Reclaiming your own authority. There comes a point in every seeker's journey when the search for guidance, validation, and truth from external sources must come to an end. The teachers, the books, the systems, the philosophies, they all serve a purpose. They illuminate the path, provide insight, and help dissolve illusion. But at some point, they must be set aside. Not because they are untrue, but because the true source of wisdom does not reside outside of oneself. It has always been within. Reclaiming inner authority is not about rejecting teachers or wisdom traditions. It is about recognizing that they are pointers, not destinations. The greatest teachers do not seek to create followers. They seek to awaken sovereignty. They do not ask for blind devotion. They guide the student back to their own knowing. Yet, the conditioned mind resists this realization. It seeks certainty from others. It clings to external validation, fearing the responsibility that comes with true autonomy. The trap of external validation is one of the most deeply ingrained patterns in human consciousness. From childhood, individuals are taught to seek approval, first from parents, then from teachers, then from society. They learn that their worth is measured by how well they conform to expectations. This conditioning is reinforced through education, religion, media, and culture. The result is a world where people look outside of themselves for permission, for acceptance, for answers. But truth cannot be outsourced. No teacher, no doctrine, no external authority can grant self-mastery. The only true guide is the one that arises from within. Recognizing the difference between external influence and inner knowing is essential. External authority operates through rules, hierarchies, and conditioned belief systems. It tells people what to think, how to act, who to be. Inner authority does not impose. It reveals. It does not demand obedience. It invites alignment. It does not come from fear, but from deep self-trust. The psychology of projection plays a significant role in this dynamic. The mind, conditioned by external authority, seeks to project its power onto others. It elevates certain figures, teachers, leaders, gurus, as ultimate sources of truth. It assumes that wisdom is something possessed by the few and must be obtained from outside sources. This is an illusion. Those who are placed on pedestals are not superior. They have simply learned to access what is available to all. Recognizing when teachers become obstacles is crucial. A true teacher empowers. A false teacher creates dependence. A true teacher points inward. A false teacher demands loyalty. A true teacher celebrates the student's awakening. A false teacher fears their independence. The journey to reclaiming inner authority requires a shift from dependence to autonomy. It requires questioning every belief, not with cynicism, but with discernment. It requires the willingness to stand alone in one's knowing, even when it contradicts collective conditioning. It requires the courage to trust oneself fully. Developing unshakable self-trust is the foundation of this mastery. Trusting oneself does not mean never making mistakes. It means knowing that mistakes are part of the process. It means recognizing that no external authority has access to deeper truth than one's own direct experience. The responsibility of self-governance comes with this trust. True autonomy is not reckless rebellion. It is the willingness to take full responsibility for one's choices, actions, and creations. It is the realization that there is no one to blame, no external force dictating reality. Every experience, every outcome is a reflection of inner alignment or misalignment. Practices for strengthening inner authority include journaling without filters, writing from a place of pure authenticity, without concern for judgment or external validation. Meditation on inner guidance, sitting in stillness, not seeking answers, but allowing truth to arise naturally. Shadow work on external authority, identifying where power has been projected onto others and reclaiming it. Decision-making from intuition, practicing making choices based on inner knowing rather than external approval. Setting energetic boundaries, recognizing and dissolving influences that seek to control or manipulate. As inner mastery deepens, the need for external validation dissolves. Life is no longer dictated by societal expectations, cultural narratives, or imposed belief systems. Choices arise from alignment, not obligation. Action stems from authenticity, not fear. This portal is the return to sovereignty. It is the recognition that nothing was ever missing, that wisdom was never outside, that the search was never necessary. The final realization approaches, the understanding that transformation is not about becoming something new, but remembering what has always been. The journey nears its completion, leading to the final illumination. Portal 7. The Philosopher's Stone. The final illumination. Throughout history, seekers, sages, and alchemists have pursued the elusive Philosopher's Stone, the legendary substance said to turn lead into gold, to grant immortality, to unlock the deepest secrets of existence. Yet, beneath the symbols and myths lies a truth far greater than the literal search for a mystical elixir. The Philosopher's Stone has never been an object to obtain, but a state of being to awaken. The final realization of this journey is that the treasure sought after, the power to transform, to create, to illuminate, has never been separate from the seeker. It has always been hidden in plain sight, buried beneath layers of illusion, conditioning, and forgetfulness. It was never lost, only unseen. This is the great paradox of transformation. The end of the journey reveals that there was never anything to attain, only something to remember. The seeker was never incomplete, never lacking, never in need of external salvation. The process of alchemy has not been about adding something new, but about refining and revealing what was always there. To understand the nature of the Philosopher's Stone, it is essential to see it as more than a metaphor. In the tradition of alchemy, the transformation of base metals into gold represents the transmutation of consciousness itself. Lead, the heavy, dense, and impure metal, symbolizes the conditioned self, weighed down by fear, doubt, and limitation. Gold represents the fully realized being, one who has transcended illusion and awakened to their own divinity. This process is not instantaneous. It is a refinement through fire. Every stage of the journey, the awakening, the shadow, the balancing of opposites, the power of words, the silence, the inner mastery, has been a part of this great alchemical work. Each has purified and prepared the self for this final realization. There is no separation between the creator and the creation. Consciousness is the stone, and the stone is the key to reality itself. To hold this realization is to embody true mastery. It is no longer an intellectual understanding or a momentary glimpse, but a lived experience. The mind no longer seeks outside of itself for validation or meaning. The self no longer clings to false identities or fears dissolution. The heart no longer divides itself into love and fear, acceptance and rejection. Everything is seen as an extension of the same essence, manifesting in infinite forms. The unification of being and doing, knowing and becoming, is the final step. Many seek wisdom but do not embody it. Many understand truth but do not live it. The Philosopher's Stone is not just awareness. It is action infused with awareness. It is the seamless integration of knowledge into existence, where every thought, word, and movement is an expression of awakened consciousness. The power to shape reality through consciousness is the ultimate gift of this process. It is not about controlling life but flowing with it, recognizing that creation is not something that happens externally but something that emerges from within. To hold the stone is to recognize that every moment is a choice, every perception a creation, every reality a reflection of the inner state. This is the final stage, the completion of the alchemical process. The lead has turned to gold. The illusion of separateness has dissolved. The seeker has become the one who sees. Yet, even as this transformation completes, another paradox emerges. The journey does not end, it expands. The moment of arrival reveals itself as another threshold, another beginning. Enlightenment is not a static state, not a final resting place. It is an ever-unfolding spiral, a continuous deepening into truth. Living as the embodiment of wisdom means walking through the world not as one who seeks but as one who radiates. It means carrying the realization not as a hidden secret, but as a presence that transforms everything it touches. This is not about teaching or preaching. It is about being. True alchemy is not performed through effort, but through existence itself. The transmutation of lead into gold was never about material wealth. It was always about the refinement of the soul. And now, standing at the threshold of the infinite, the choice is clear. Not to hold on to enlightenment as an achievement, but to live it, to express it, to become it. This is the philosopher's stone. This is the final illumination. And yet, it is only the beginning. The eternal journey. The journey that began with a call to transformation has led through 7 portals, each revealing a deeper truth, each stripping away layers of illusion, conditioning, and limitation. The seeker who stepped onto this path is not the same as the one who stands here now. Something fundamental has shifted, not in the external world, but within. And yet, here at the threshold of completion, another truth emerges. This journey never truly ends. Transformation is not a single event, nor is enlightenment a final destination. It is a continuous unfolding, a spiral that deepens and expands without limit. Every revelation gives way to another mystery. Every realization opens new doors. To think otherwise is to fall into the illusion of finality, the belief that there is an endpoint to growth, learning, and awakening. The nature of existence itself is ever evolving, and so too is consciousness. The moment one believes they have arrived, they close themselves off from the next step. True mastery is not about reaching a static state of perfection. It is about becoming fluid, adaptable, open to the infinite unfolding of being. This is the paradox of enlightenment. The more one awakens, the more they realize there is no end to awakening. The more they understand, the more they embrace the unknown. The more they transform, the more they recognize that transformation is not something they do, but something they are. At this stage, a profound shift occurs. No longer is the path about seeking, it becomes about embodying. The difference between seeking and embodying is subtle yet vast. Seeking is driven by the belief that something is missing, that there is more to attain, that one must move forward to reach fulfillment. Embodying is the realization that everything needed is already present, that wisdom is not something to chase but something to live. This is where the true alchemist is born, not as someone who studies transformation, but as someone who is transformation. No longer bound by external authority, no longer trapped by illusion, no longer looking outside for answers, the alchemist moves through the world with a deep inner knowing. They are no longer defined by their past, their fears, or their limitations. They create reality not through force, but through alignment. But this realization does not separate them from the world. It connects them to it more deeply than ever before. The path of inner transformation is not a retreat from life. It is an invitation to engage with it fully. To walk this path is not to withdraw into isolation, but to step forward with greater presence, authenticity, and power. This is where personal transformation meets collective evolution. The work done within is not just for the individual. It ripples outward, affecting everything it touches. As one person awakens, they create space for others to do the same. As one person transforms, they contribute to the elevation of consciousness as a whole. This is not about changing the world through force or imposition, but through embodiment. The greatest impact is not made by those who seek to control or persuade, but by those who simply are. A single being who lives in alignment with their truth has more power than 1,000 voices speaking without connection to their own essence. To live as an alchemist in everyday life is to embrace this truth. It is to see every experience as part of the unfolding process. Every challenge becomes an initiation. Every interaction becomes a reflection. Every moment becomes an opportunity to embody the wisdom that has been uncovered. But this path is not without its challenges. The world will continue to test this transformation. Old patterns may resurface. Doubts may whisper. External influences may attempt to pull one back into unconsciousness. This is where the work deepens, not in avoiding these challenges, but in meeting them with awareness. The true alchemist does not seek to escape difficulty but to transmute it. They do not reject the world but learn to navigate it with wisdom and clarity. They do not fear darkness but integrate it as part of the wholeness of being. This is the invitation. Not to see this journey as something that has ended, but as something that continues in every moment, in every breath, in every choice. The Philosopher's Stone is not a destination, it is the way of being. Practical integration. Turning insight into lived experience. Knowledge without application is useless. The insights gained through this journey mean nothing if they are not lived, if they do not become a tangible, embodied reality. Transformation is not measured by how much one knows but by how much one becomes. To ensure that this wisdom is integrated, daily practices must be established. Each portal has revealed essential tools for mastery, and now it is time to weave them into everyday life. Daily practices for each portal. Awakening. Begin each day with presence. Before reaching for external distractions, take a moment to center yourself, to remember who you are beyond conditioning. Shadow work. Regularly reflect on triggers and projections. When discomfort arises, ask, what is this revealing about myself? What unclaimed part of me is seeking integration? Mastering polarity. Observe extremes in thought and emotion. When caught in opposition, practice finding the middle path, integrating rather than resisting. The power of the word. Speak with awareness. Notice the words used to describe reality and shift language to align with conscious creation. Silence and inner wisdom. Carve out space for stillness daily. Allow silence to be a guide rather than something to be avoided. Inner mastery. Trust intuition over external validation. Make decisions from inner knowing rather than seeking permission. Living the Philosopher's Stone. Move through the world as an embodiment of wisdom, recognizing that every action, thought, and intention is an act of creation. Journaling prompts for reflection. How has my perception of reality changed through this journey? What aspects of my conditioned self have I released? Where do I still seek external validation? And how can I shift to self-trust? How do I embody this wisdom in my daily life? Meditation techniques for integration. Breath work for presence. Using conscious breathing to stay grounded in the now. Visualization of the Philosopher's Stone. Seeing the inner light, the fully realized self, and aligning with it. Silence as a gateway. Sitting in pure stillness, allowing insight to arise naturally. Community and accountability. Finding others on the path for support and shared wisdom. Holding oneself accountable not to perfection but to authenticity. Navigating challenges and resistance. Recognizing that transformation is not linear, There will be cycles of expansion and contraction. Embracing setbacks as part of the process rather than as failures. Creating a personalized alchemical practice. Understanding that no single method works for all. Each person must refine their own approach to mastery. Honoring intuition when deciding which practices to maintain or evolve. Measuring progress, signs of transformation. A greater sense of inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. A shift from seeking to embodying. The ability to navigate challenges with clarity and wisdom. The realization that there is nothing to attain, only something to live. The journey continues. Standing here at the culmination of this path, the final realization emerges. There is no final realization. The work is never finished, and that is the beauty of it. The alchemist does not seek completion but embraces the endless unfolding of consciousness. The question is no longer, what do I need to find? But how will I live what I have discovered? This is the invitation, to walk forward not as one who seeks, but as one who knows. Not as one who is bound, but as one who is free. The eternal journey is not about finding answers but about becoming the living embodiment of wisdom itself. And now the path is yours.